Yes, sir. Yes. Everybody, please be seated. And I want to say, before we get started, to all of our panelists, thank you so much for being here. All of us have been tested today, and so if you're comfortable with removing your mask, you may, or you can keep it on. It's up to you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're here this afternoon for this very crucial time together in unity of listening to local business owners, law enforcement, and to the people of America. With everything that's going on in our streets, with the riot and the looting and the anarchy and all of those things and extreme behavior, it's so important that we come together to support our law enforcement men and women. And that's why we're here today. In particular here in the Twin Cities, where you have seen unrest of historic proportions. And so today we have the Vice President, Ivanka, and our panelists to speak and to share their stories in our heart and to listen so that we can do what we need to do for the American people in here in the Twin Cities. And so, Mr. Vice President, I'm going to throw it to you and let you run.
Well, hello, Minnesota. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Scott. Thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you for making time for this important event. And it's a particular joy for me to be traveling today with one of the great spokespeople of this administration, a leader in her own right that's been a champion for America's working families. Join me in welcoming Ivanka Trump back to Minnesota. Ivanka, it's great to be with you. I'm also grateful to be joined today by some wonderful people. The next senator from the state of Minnesota, Jason Lewis, is with us today. Jason, where are you? Take us now. And also the next congressman from Minneapolis, Lacey Johnson, is with us today. Lacey, thank you so much. And I also want to mention, Jason Lewis actually isn't my favorite Lewis. His wife, Lee, retired after 8 years with the St. Paul Police Department. Lee, would you take a bow? She comes from a great law enforcement family. Thank you. But I'm here because I stand with President Donald Trump. And President Donald Trump and I stand with the men and women who serve in law enforcement at every level, and we always will. We're going to hear from some folks in this community today who've, along with all of you, have been through so much over this last summer. And I want you to know how grateful we are that you're here and that you're willing to tell your story. I just came from Flora's Hair Design, or what was left of Flora's Hair Design. And like so many other innocent business owners, in the wake of the killing of George Floyd, her establishment was destroyed, and that of her sons. And Flora's here to tell us her story. But I want to be clear. There's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd, and justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting and violence that ensued, and those who engage in acts like these will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. I promise you. But we're here today because it's such a challenging time in the life of men and women who serve in law enforcement all across this country. And I want to assure you that your president, your vice president, our entire administration know that the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement are some of the best people in this country, and they deserve the respect of every American every day. In fact, I expect there are there are current and former members of law enforcement who are with us today. If you're able, would you mind standing if you've served in law enforcement or currently serve in law enforcement? Give us a chance to say thank you for your service one more time. Thank you so much for your courageous service. You know, my uncle was a police officer in Chicago, Illinois for about 25 years. And those of us who have had family members in law enforcement understand just how special all of you are. I mean, the men and women that put on the uniform of law enforcement every day, when they strap a sidearm on, they walk out the door, they kiss their families goodbye. And I want you to know, the American people know, that in that moment, you've decided to count our lives more important than yours. And that's why President Trump, this Vice President, and the American people stand with the men and women in law enforcement. America backs the blue. Now, it's also the reason why in the first 3 years of this administration, we've been supporting law enforcement at every level. 4,000 police officers funded through the COPS program. We broke records working with state and local law enforcement for prosecutions in violent crime and firearm prosecutions. Violent crime was steadily dropping to historic lows from a time in the previous 8 years that saw violent crime on the rise. And then we saw what happened here in Minneapolis and the rioting that ensued. Now, let me be clear. President Trump and I will always stand by the right of Americans to peaceful protest. But rioting and looting is not peaceful protest. Burning buildings is not free speech. And it's the reason why we're here in Minneapolis today, to make sure the people of this community and law enforcement in this community know that we're with you. It's amazing to think more than 1,500 buildings were damaged in the Twin Cities area, more than $500 million in damages. In the midst of the rioting and looting, it was President Donald Trump that called on your governor to send in the National Guard. And Minnesota's National Guard deployed and quelled the violence, working with local law enforcement, and they have our thanks and our admiration. I'm proud to say also that since then we've literally deployed federal law enforcement personnel to 29 different states, charged 300 rioters, and with Operation Legend, we deployed 1,000 federal law enforcement officials, and at the present moment, more than 2,500 violent criminals have been arrested in connection with the violence in our major cities. And I will promise you, with President Donald Trump in the White House, we are going to have law and order in every city, in every state, in this country, for every American of every race and creed and color. So help us God. Which is quite a contrast from the other side. I mean, it's remarkable to think that here in Minneapolis you had a city council that literally voted to replace the police department in the wake of all the violence. Not surprisingly, I'm told that 65 Minneapolis police officers have resigned or retired already this year. And usually there's less than that in an entire year. More than 150 Minneapolis officers have sought disability, as Democrats are also cutting funding, not just in this city, but in places like New York City and LA and Seattle. And on the national level, we know that Joe Biden and his running mate are talking about cutting funding to the police, or reimagining law enforcement, as they put it. When Joe Biden was asked if he would cut funding to law enforcement, he responded, yes, absolutely. Joe Biden says America is systemically racist and that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities. His campaign staff helped bail out rioters, and in fact, his running mate just yesterday said that it was, quote, outdated and wrong-headed to think that the only way to make our communities safe is more police officers on the street. Well, let me say, on behalf of your president, this vice president, I'll make you a promise. We're not going to defund the police. Not now, not ever. We're going to fund law enforcement with more resources, for more training to bring public safety to the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and America. And finally, I want to turn it back over to Scott and listen for the rest of the afternoon to these compelling stories. But I also want to assure you that the President and I also know we don't need to choose between supporting law enforcement and supporting our African American neighbors here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or anywhere else. And the truth is, over the last 4 years, we've done both. We've supported law enforcement with new resources. And under this president, with our policies, we saw the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans. Permanent funding for historically black colleges and universities. We passed criminal justice reform and created more than 8,000 opportunity zones, creating jobs in major cities all across America. We can support law enforcement, support greater opportunities for our African American neighbors and all our minorities. We have done both for 4 years, and we're going to do both for 4 more years in the White House. I promise you. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your support for law enforcement and for all the families in this community. And I want to thank these wonderful people for coming, especially my new friend Flora, for coming and being willing to tell her story and for her personal courage and faith. It's truly inspiring and good to be with you all. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Let's give Mr. Vice President a round. Thank you so much. You know, I love the Vice President personally, but we are so blessed in this country to have such a servant leader that holds this office. And I want us to, when we reflect on that, not to ever take that for granted, that we have a man such as this, that has a position such as this, and the influence that he has, and he stewards over it so good and greatly, and he's a godly, faithful man. And so, Mr. Vice President, we really appreciate you, and thank you for being such a servant leader. We appreciate that, sir. Next, I want Mrs. Ivanka Trump, who's a great leader, as the Vice President said, in her own right, and a tremendous mother and wife and daughter and a true patriot. And so, Ivanka, if you would share with the crowd today, and thank you so much for being here and sharing with our panel and with our audience today.
Well, thank you. And hello, Minnesota. It is always great to be back, and this time is certainly no exception. Being here with the Vice President is a great honor. And with all of you who are in the audience today, so many men and women from law enforcement, truly the guardians of our streets, we thank you. The President stands with you. We honor you, we respect you, and we support you. So thank you. I really had a very emotional experience today, as did the Vice President, when we had the opportunity to visit with Flora, and we drove to her business and we saw what remained of it, and we heard her story of struggle and accomplishment, achieving her American dream over the course of 35 years of hard work and toil. And it was a family business, working alongside your sister and your niece, doing what you loved, and seeing that burnt down before your eyes in a matter of hours by looters and rioters. And our heart goes out to you. And we will do what America does best. We will come together as individuals, as communities, with the president's full support, the vice president's support, and help you and others like you rebuild, because that's what we need to do. And as the vice president said, this administration, this country respects and supports peaceful protest. But what we've seen is far from that all too often. And I think the testimonies we'll hear today and the voices which will share their experience will underscore that very unfortunate reality. So, Flora, we thank you for your courage and your bravery in being here. We're praying for you that you'll be able to turn the page on this particular chapter. And we thank all of you in the audience who supporting Flora, her community, and the just tremendous people of Minneapolis. So we appreciate being here. It's our honor, and I look forward to hearing from everyone else on the stage. So thank you for the warm welcome.
Well, thank you, Ivanka, and we really appreciate your heartfelt remarks and being here with us today. And now it's time to hear from our panelists, because each of them has been affected by what's going on in our country, in our city today. Families are impacted, communities are impacted, businesses are impacted severely. It's already hard enough to own a business and to be in a business. Can I get an amen from any entrepreneur in the crowd? It's already hard enough. But we have some true patriots on the stage today in business and in law enforcement. And so we want to hear from them. And Lloyd, I'm going to start with you in the jewelry business. And panelists, if you would, I want to hear from each of you, the Vice President Ivanka, we want to hear from each of you. And so we will be respectful of each other's time so all of us can go in and to share and to hear together. And so I will give you a couple of minutes, Lloyd, to share what's on your heart for the audience.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I own Thurston Jewelers down at Lake and Lindale in Minneapolis. And there's a few people out there I know. And we got hit that Tuesday night. And it started about 1 in the morning. We got a call from the alarm companies, and they were breaking in. And they said, there's really not a lot we could do right at the moment because the police were basically overwhelmed with the situation. So we drove down there. I did, and the glass was all broken out. Every piece of glass in the store was gone. They had carried off, a lot of the inventory and everything. And, we ended up staying there most of the night and watching kind of the chaos and the things on the street. And it was really a sobering thing to see just how, if you don't have law enforcement and if you don't have control like that, people go just literally crazy. It was chaos and lawlessness. And after witnessing that, you kind of, you just realize, there really is a thin blue line, and we really do need, not less cops, more cops in Minneapolis. So it was. So our experience kind of continued on for 2 or 3 days, and it was really just the lack of. I guess you'd call it decision-making or management by, basically the mayor, the city council, and the governor and things. They let this thing roll on for like 3 days before really, calling in the National Guard and trying to put a stop to it. And during those three days, there was a lot of businesses that were lost, and it wasn't like a natural disaster, a hurricane or something. This thing could have been stopped with just some, quick decisions and stuff, like that. So. After this, I think we'll be more prepared, but we need to have some people in city council and stuff like that who want to really fund the police and get serious about, stopping this stuff. So.
Thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate that. The Vice President and Ivanka spoke of the President's policies that have been put in place over the last 3.5 years, almost 4 years, that are business friendly. and we want to take advantage of those to make sure we can operate and keep our businesses going. And when you have to face external threat, it makes it even harder. And so thank you for being so strong and a patriot. And thank you for the people of Minnesota supporting Lloyd. We really appreciate that. Ms. Jones, I'm going to go to you and have you share about your family's business in Western wear, saddle, leather, and I'm going to let you tell it, but I was just very fascinated, so please, Ms. Jones.
All right. Well, my family and I own Shots Line Saddle Shop down on Lake Street. We've been there for 113 years.
Started hold your mic up so we can hear you.
113 years. My grandfather started it in 1907. So it's third generation. Been always located on Lake Street. First location was down just 2 blocks from where the store is now. Otherwise been in that location since 1930. So yeah, this has always been what I've done all my life, has worked at the store. It's my livelihood. And to watch it on TV was heartbreaking. There was nothing you could do. You saw the crowds getting closer and closer to the store, fires being built in the middle of the street, and I called up my brother and I said, what do we do? And he says, there's nothing we can do. He said, just hope that the boards hold them out. And I go, no, we got to get down there. We got to do something. And he goes, no, we can't. We don't know if they got gun, they could shoot us, they could do anything. We don't know. So we just sat and watched it all on TV, watched it involved, and hoped that when we got there the next day that our building was still going to be standing. And the alarms, of course, went off because of all the ruckus going on around us. And we got there Saturday morning, and God was looking over us. We didn't have any windows busted. They hit the store next to us, and like I said, they built the fires in the middle of the street, and they got the buildings around us, but they left us alone. So, I don't know. We had a halo over us, that's for sure. But it was definitely scary, not knowing that the police couldn't do anything. Nobody. It was just out of control.
Well, thank you, Joan. And it's, the interesting part, Mr. Vice President and Ivanka, of Joan's story is that her store wasn't directly hit, but they were not in business or able to go to the store for many days, which impacted their revenue, which he said is their livelihood. And so each business scenario may be different, but the impact and the severity of it remains the same on everyone. And so thank you, and I'm glad your store was not hit, and I hope that you're able to get back to get the business and do what you need to do. Now, I want to, yes, thank you.
Thank you, John. There's that feeling of helplessness I heard from both of you. You're with your jewelry store, and then watching, you said you literally saw your store on television.
Oh, yeah.
As it was moving closer and closer. And that feeling of helplessness. I have to tell you, in a free society with law and order, innocent civilians and their property should never feel helpless. Our help is with the law and with law enforcement. All right?
It is, yeah.
Well, it's just thank you for being transparent about that. It's real, and people need to understand. Those of you that have been victimized, those of you who have watched anxiously from afar, we need to understand that feeling.
Yeah, totally helpless.
Yeah. Well, you're not. We're here. They're here.
Yeah.
We're going to stay right here until we restore law and order. I promise you, Joan. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Long, I'm going to go to you, sir, if you would, just share your story with us in the fashion industry.
Yes, thank you so much. And hello for everyone here. And I'm so happy I'll be here today. I support President and the Vice President. And also, I did a business. I had a business on the University-St. And I came to this country in 1980. I've been here, and I went to the three years for high school and 2 years for the junior college. And also, I started my business in 1988, and until today, and never had any problem. But before the past year, before every year, I donation some money to help the St. Paul police, and also the church and the highway patrol. They asked me, I donation some money a little bit to help them every year. I don't know, this year since two problems since the effect for our business. And the first business I have for until now, and never had any problem. And the problem is, the first problem is the coronavirus, and it's the effect for the people. And the second problem is May 29, I have the people, they broke in my store. And then they took a lot of the stuff in my store, and I lost 600 business suit, cement suit. And in my safe, I have 10,000 cash in my safe. They took everything. They took my safe. And when early in the morning, I come in, I look at my store. I cry. Why? Because you work very, very hard, and you come and you look, everything gone. And I'm very, very sick. So right now, I call, after that, I call the police. The police never come. Yeah, I call the alarm system. I have the alarm system. I call them. I say, why you don't call the police to come and I pay for you. You wash everything. Why you don't call the police? They say, because maybe 100 times. The police did not show up because it's so busy. We don't have enough police. And right now, I need some more police in St. Paul because I called the police to come and make a report, and they're so busy, they don't come. And also, the reason is we need some more police, and we need some more, we need help. Because right now, the business is too slow. I lay off all my employees. I don't have no money to pay them. And right now, today I'm here, I need some help. Because I need some green, or maybe some money to help the business again. And I want my employee to come back to work for me. I'm working hard to support the family. And I don't know, something, I've been in business for 32 years, never happened, just only this time. But I never get up. I need to support my business and go again in the hay. So I need some help, and also, and hopefully, and whatever but right now, the business too slow. Either I'm the owner, I don't have no employee, just only me work in the store right now. And I don't know what, and when I gotta get everything back, and I need my employee come back to work for me. So I'm very close to retire, but I'm still working hard. I'm almost to 60 years old right now, but I'm still working hard. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Long.
Long, we love you. Thank you. Long, you live the American dream, and that dream's going to come back.
Thank
This
you.
community, I know, admires you and loves you. And you're going to come back stronger than ever before. So, thank you for your being willing to share your story and your hardship. These are the stories. It's the reason why Ivanka and I are here. People gather here in Minneapolis know these stories, but people out there need to know these stories. They need to know the impact on Americans who worked long and hard to build their dreams and have suffered under the weight of the rioting and the looting that's taken place this summer. And it just steels our resolve to stand with you and to back the blue. It truly does. So thank you, Long. Beautiful words. Beautiful.
Flora. Yes, and Ms. Flora, we're going to come to you, and then we're going to end with our law enforcement champion. And before long, one thing you said, you've been in business for 33 years, you work hard to take care of your family. But one thing that really stood out to me that you said is that as you were blessed in your business, is that you gave back. And that blesses the community. It's not the government giving back. It is private individuals and private business that have extra that are given to the community. And so thank you for doing that. And we're going to be praying for you to stand up strong again. I appreciate that. Miss Flora, my mother-in-law name is Flora. That's a sweet name. So please share with us, ma'am, what you shared earlier with the Vice President Ivanka so that we can hear, and then we're going to end with our law enforcement champion. Go ahead, Ms. Flora.
Yes, I'm the owner of Flora's Hair Design. I started my business in 1986. I never got a loan or a grant. I worked and started my business. I started out with a few dryers. They was used. And as I progressed, then I was able to buy new dryers, a new shampoo bowl. I was supporting 4 kids, putting kids in school, putting them in college, and, you know, trying to just to live the American dream here. And my business burned down May 29th. I got a phone call and said my son's business was on fire. So I knew I was two doors down from here. I knew my business was going to start burning pretty soon. And it was horrible to stand there and see your business burn, everything you worked for, your whole livelihood just to burn in front of you. And I mean, it's just devastating. And I just want to be open. I just want my business back. I just want another start. Like I said, I've been there 35 years, and I never thought this would happen to me. Never in a million dreams. I thought I would stand to see and watch my business just burn to the ground. So, but I'm thankful Mr. Pence here and Ivanka. I mean, and the support I got from everyone. It's just amazing how people care. I never knew people care like that for me. So thank you, all the American people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flora, for sharing that. We all heard it. We didn't just hear words, we saw her heart and the grief and the pain. And support is coming. The best support we have is us, people, to go see Flora, to go see Lloyd, to go see Joan, to go see Long. People help people. That's why we're here, to have one another's back, so that which has been torn down can be built back up. Not government, but people. It's going to be on us.
And Flora, it wasn't just your business, your son's business right next door.
Yes, my son was in business there. He used to have a beauty salon there for 25 years. So.
And you told me that someone had spray painted
Yeah, they
on the windows.
Yes.
And this was days after the killing of George Floyd. Someone had spray painted black owned.
But it didn't help. They still burned my business.
But the rioters burned your business and looted a McDonald's and a store across the street and brought great havoc and destruction.
Yes, I Just couldn't believe it.
to a wonderful neighborhood. We were just there and saw so many good people, so many warm wishes. I know how much people love you there, and I'm gonna tell you, just as Scott did. I know your family's down in Arizona has talked about you coming down, but don't make any plans to leave Minneapolis. You're going to build back. You're going to build back. This community's going to be with you, and we're going to be with you. Okay? Thanks for telling your story.
Thank you, sir.
What a special woman.
Well, Matt, I want to bring you in from a law enforcement community. Thank you so much for your service, currently in K-9 service. But you've had experience in several areas of law enforcement. And so if you would, just speak your heart to us and tell us your story, please, sir.
I've been a deputy sheriff for going on 21 years. I've been with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office the entire time. I've worked a variety of different roles. I've been very fortunate in the roles that I've been able to work. One of the big things that in my 20-year career is I've seen a lot of events that people said this is a once-in-a-career event. When the 35W bridge collapsed, I was there for that. Republican National Convention when it was here in 2008. I was fortunate enough a few years ago to go out to the inauguration in D.C. to be part of the security detail for that. And I've also had a lot of other events personally in my career that I hope to never see again. But the events in Minneapolis were something like I've never seen before. You always hear that, you know, you don't think it's getting any worse, and it keeps getting worse. And currently the calls to defund the police, I challenge these people. Right now, I think law enforcement is probably the best trained and best educated they've ever been in our country's history. And the calls to defund that is just going to make it worse if they don't think we're trained enough right now. I challenge any agency right now, if you tell them they have to cut their budget, one of the first things they're going to cut is training. And people want law enforcement to be better trained at this point. You can start cutting funding, we're going to be less trained. We're not going to be able to do the job that we're supposed to do. I think the challenges for law enforcement right now, from in the past, we are expected to be, you know, the handyman that fixes everything. And it's not possible. The amount of training we go to now, we're spread out in so many different areas, we can't focus on any one thing anymore. We can't be good at any one thing because we have so many different things we have to focus on. The community support is there, which is great from a lot of places, but unfortunately with a lot of our elected officials, it's not. And it makes it very tough to come in and do your job every day when you know you don't have the support there. Here in a lot of my friends that work for Minneapolis and other cities, they don't even want to come to work anymore. They say they get sick to their stomach before they got to come into work because they know there's no support there. They're worried that if something happens, are they going to be in jail? What's their family going to do? For me, during the riots, my daughter was afraid when I would go to work and go in and work the riots because she was worried someone was going to come to our house and damage our house or hurt them. And that's something no kid or anybody should ever have to worry about.
Good. Thank you, man.
Can I ask, Matt is the president of the Minnesota FOP. I think he deserves another round of applause for great leadership, for a great tradition in this state and local. When did I mean, I have to tell you, you know, I'm just a small town guy from southern Indiana, okay? And I mean, when did it start to go bad with your elected officials in Minneapolis? I'm just really curious. I mean, to have them unanimously vote to replace the police department and have elected, was that an overnight development, or when did it start to erode? And I would have talked to some of the officers that are here later.
It's been a Democratic majority city for the last 40 plus years. It's always been.
But I remember back when Democrats supported law enforcement. I do. And now we have leading voices in the Democratic Party that are talking about cutting funding and reimagining law enforcement. But when did you think that started to shift? Maybe it shifted here at the local level before it shifted at the national.
It's shifted here in the last probably 5-6 years. I think a lot of
Is that right?
a lot of stuff started with in Ferguson. The effects, the fallout from some of that. I think a lot of the elected officials in Minneapolis and some of the other places here you're very far left, almost radical, and they're not typical of the Democrats that there were in the past that supported labor and supported workers' rights. It's not that anymore. And there was, in the past, there were city council members that were very supportive of law enforcement and saw the value of them, and that is not the case anymore.
Well, if nothing else, the experience that began here and that we've seen emerge in places around the country has certainly shed light on people in public office. And I have a feeling, Ivanka and I were talking about it, I mean, the essence of the contract that we have with government in a free society is the ability to live peaceably in our homes, to be able to walk our streets, to be able to go to work and not fear for our safety. And I have a strong feeling that many Republicans, many independents, many Democrats around America come November 3rd are going to let their voice be heard at every level and support a president and support men and women at every level that are going to support law enforcement. Because that's the thing, and I want to thank you, Matt. Thanks for your leadership and your words. And I want to assure everybody here that in the wake of those events in May, President Trump went to the Rose Garden at the White House. He signed an executive order not to cut funding for the police, but to increase funding for training in the use of force, training in de-escalation. I think Matt Hagan makes a great point, that those people that talk about how police need to be trained better and at the same time talk about cutting funding to police, you said the first place the department's probably going to cut is training dollars. So if we want better public safety, if we want our law enforcement officers better prepared, we need more funding, which is exactly what President Trump called for. And also, we worked with our friend Senator Tim Scott. Senator Tim Scott wrote an important bill on Capitol Hill. I was with him just yesterday. He is an extraordinary senator, a Republican from South Carolina, and a man of faith and integrity. And he sat down with Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and said, let's pass legislation that'll improve public safety, provide more resources. And it's remarkable to think that the Democrats in the Senate blocked the bill, wouldn't even debate it. And that's why I promise you, folks, with 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House, we're going to provide more support for law enforcement, for better public safety, better training, and we're going to provide more support for our African-American neighbors and friends. We're going to improve the lives of the people in our major cities of every race and creed and color. Because that's truly the answer, and I believe in my heart that's what the American people want. The American people want us to stand by law enforcement and stand by our African-American neighbors and all of our neighbors that have been impacted by the violence in our cities. I think that's at the heart of what I hear all across this country. As I said earlier, it's not an either-or. American people, we know we don't have to choose, and we should never choose between supporting law enforcement and supporting whether it be our African-American neighbors or any members of our minority community or any communities in our cities. All of the American people deserve law and order. And I promise you, President Donald Trump and I are going to roll our sleeves up. We're going to carry that message all across this country with the support of the people of the great state of Minnesota. We're going to have 4 more years to back the blue and support all of our neighbors of every race and creed and color in every city and state in this nation. So, Scott?
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you, Ivanka. Thank you all for being here, and thank all of our panelists for your stories. Let's give them a round of applause, please. And to all of you that are in the audience, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Thank you for praying for your president, your vice president, the administration, and for one another in this country, the United States of America, the greatest country in the world. And so thank you so much for being here. As we depart today, please know that we're praying for you and your families. And please, if you've heard the testimonies and seen the faces of the individuals on this stage, I hope you have an imprint in your mind of their voices and their face and their families, and that you will support and uphold them and our law enforcement men and women alongside of that as well. And thank you as we leave today. God bless you, God bless your families, and God bless America. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Look at the camera real quick.
Hello, mic check 1 2 3 4. Mic check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay.